Hey guys, this is Brian. My property is 1.5 acres in size, but I only mow, water, fertilize, weed that tiny little green patch that you see down there next to the house. Most of the material on this channel is filmed on only a little bit more than 4,000 square feet of land space. And this 1,500 square feet, I don't even irrigate or fertilize. Consequently, it isn't mowed as often either. And I almost never talk about the other 60,000 square feet. And there's a good reason for that too. I don't think it's important or prudent either to treat your entire property like a pad of turf grass and mow it constantly. Our family is never going to play on all of our property like it's the traditional manicured lawn right outside of our backyard door. I find that it's very important to use your land, no matter how much you have, in the best way possible for you, your family, and your values. My wife and I manage 9 productive garden beds, giving us roughly 220 square feet of productive garden space, spanning roughly 440 square foot of land space. That usually provides us plenty of food to do an enormous amount of canning every fall. We also, poorly at times, manage a flower bed along the side of our house. And we've dedicated roughly 360 square feet of our property to our chickens, their coop, and their run. Our dog kennel alone is 1,200 square feet with 2 dog houses and a covered dog porch, giving them ample protection from the weather at any part of the year. And all structures on this entire property, for the most part, I built with my own hands at the sacrifice of traditional lawn space. Now, roughly half an acre of our extended property outside of the fence line is cut back a couple times a month with my wide deck battery powered lawnmower so that I'm not burning gas or making an unnecessary amount of sound in the neighborhood. For us, it serves as a fire break, and it stops or discourages unwanted rodents from nesting really close to the house. I also do this to cut down the native thistle that grows around the hillside around us. For those occasional times that the kids decide to wander out into the greater yard, I don't want them running into a patch of razor blades waist high. And the far reaches of our property, the places that I didn't even show you, those are so far away that it just makes no sense whatsoever to treat that property like a lawn or a yard at all. You see, I'm only ever going to be tempted to just lay in the grass and play with the kids next to the garden and their play equipment. I'm never going to be tempted to do that anywhere else. My kids are never going to go play catch anywhere else on the property except for this small flat area right next to the house. And we're never going to be putting slip and slides and kiddie pools up anywhere other than here. This place needs to be a safe play area for children. I could guarantee you that I'll never put a slip and slide on the rocky hillside outside of our fence line. It's just not going to happen, so I'm not going to treat that area like a lawn. Now, obviously, I cut my lawn a lot and I care for it deeply, but it's a tiny drop in the bucket on my entire property. We're talking it's 2,500 square feet, maybe 4,000 if you consider the hill that I don't irrigate right there, out of roughly 66,000 square feet. It takes me 20 minutes, start to finish, to mow this lawn, even when I have to move kids' play equipment around. But I do want to take some time right now to shed light on different legitimate reasons why you shouldn't be cutting your grass, shouldn't be cutting it often, should be cutting it as little as possible, or never at all. These are some of the most common complaints that people have against cutting the grass or maintaining a green lawn like you see right here. But as a bonus, I'm going to throw in a couple other little ideas that most of those people don't ever actually say, but I actually think are pretty important. Reasons to not cut the grass. All right, guys, while I sit around some of my garden starts that are going to go over here, let's rapid fire go through the most common reasons that people don't want to, or their arguments for not mowing the lawn. A lot of these I agree with, but only in certain situations. Your property is too large. It costs too much money or time to mow the lawn that often. I got the wrong grass type to be mowing that often. That's one that really only lawn enthusiasts bring up. Here's one that someone like me brings up, but people that don't like lawns altogether, they never bring it up. If you can't water and fertilize your lawn enough, then there's really no point in mowing the grass all the time. Some people really desire the meadow look, and they want lots of other people to have the meadow looks in their lawns and properties. Like you see around me, some people just really think all lawns should be very, very productive spaces, places where we can grow flowers and vegetables and produce eggs with chickens and animals. All land space should be productive. A lot of people think that lawn mowers and all of the lawn equipment is just dirty and pollution rid. It's just a great way to pollute the environment with sound and fumes. A lot of people don't like just having straight turf grass because they think that it is damaging to the biodiversity of the environment. You have only turf grass here and you don't have other kinds of plants, and you probably don't have the bugs and critters. That's their complaint. And then you'll find this a lot in drier climates, but a lot of people think that non-vegetative or non-vegetation lawns, things that are like rockscapes and other sorts of landscaping creations, are a better way to go. They argue that this is better for the environment than trying to grow a lawn where water is scarce. Now certainly there's going to be some other major complaints and some other reasons to not cut the grass or maintain a lawn, but I want to talk about each one of them briefly. If your property is too large, my property, as I said in this video, is way too large. There's no way on earth I'm going to tend to my entire property like it's a lawn. That's why I've sectioned off my lawn. I mean, it's like 5%, 4% of my property is lawn space. That is a reasonable percentage for a larger lawn. I don't care how big your property is, you don't have to maintain the whole property as a lawn. Dovetailing into, see, I got my notes here. Dovetailing into, it costs too much in money and time. Who's got the time for that? I can't like pay for all of that gas. Well, you're doing too much. You're literally doing too much. This lawn takes me 20 minutes to mow, and most of the time when I'm mowing, I'm out here with my kids. I'm running battery-powered equipment, so it's not loud and scary for the kids, and I can basically be with my children and just mow the lawn in chunks whenever it makes sense. It doesn't take very long, but that's just because I manage a very small area. If I was trying to mow my entire property and keep a lawn, it would take way too much time. And for those of you who think that it takes way too much money to mow your lawn, that's probably because you're mowing with gas a much bigger space than you probably should be mowing. I'm not going to tell you that your lawn is too big, but I'm going to tell you that your lawn might be too big. And if you think it takes too much money to buy gas, maybe you should consider battery, because they're not that bad. I've used many battery-powered pieces of lawn equipment, mostly lawnmowers, and they all are perfectly fine, and they don't cost me any money at all to run. I buy the unit, and then I just run it. I guess there's a little bit of electricity to charge those batteries, but that's pretty much a negligible cost. I don't notice it on my electric bill. Now, again, if you can't fertilize and irrigate your lawn, let's say you're in like a dry climate, if you've got 10,000 square feet of lawn space and you just can't get water on it all, and you're not going to be buying fertilizer for the whole thing because it costs too much in time or money, well, maybe you shouldn't be mowing the lawn every 3 or 4 days. Maybe you should be mowing the lawn every 5 to 7 days. But I would suggest that if that's the case, you bring that lawnmower deck up to its highest setting possible so that you can mow it regularly. That way your lawn is still going to actually look good, but you're not going to be doing it very often. You don't want to be letting it go high and then cutting it all the way down on the lowest setting of your mower, because it looks terrible, and more importantly, it's way too hard to cut the grass. That much grass all at once. All of these people out there that say mowing is so hard, why would I go out 2 times a week in the middle of the summer to mow my grass when it's 95, 100 degrees? Well, that's because you've let it go for 2.5 weeks. If I didn't cut this grass like once every 3 weeks or so, it'd be incredibly difficult to mow it. And if it's hot out, I'd be miserable. But this is a leisurely thing when I keep it regularly mowed. So if you don't want to do it very often, make sure to bring your mower deck up as high as you can so that you're not cutting into stems and leaving a white lawn later because of all these frayed tips and basically putting way too much effort into the job. If you can't water the lawn and you can't fertilize the lawn at all, maybe you consider watering and fertilizing a small section of it and letting the rest go. Maybe landscaping the rest, maybe putting the rest of your area to productive use, doing something else and shrinking your lawn size. Because I feel like tending to a gigantic lawn poorly is not worth it. It's just not worth it. I would rather tend to a small lawn very well. So if you can't get the job done on the whole area, shrink it down, but don't necessarily get rid of it. Because all of you people who don't have kids and don't have play structures in your lawn, you probably want to step out in the backyard and have a barbecue every now and then. Maybe just sit out on the grass in a lounge chair and have a drink. It's a lot better to do that in turf grass than it is in 3-foot high field grass. Now, if you do like that 3-foot high field grass, that's what I'm going to call the meadow look. That's what I do. I do the meadow look for all of the extended areas of my property. I don't really tend to it at all. I do cut down the thistly areas because I don't want my kids walking through that, but there's nothing wrong with the meadow look. It does support the biodiversity in the greater surrounding environment. I'm basically supporting all of the native plants that live in my area by not cutting them all down. But all of that goes back to, why is your lawn so big? If you can't tend to it, then shrink the thing down. Now, a lot of people, I get this a lot of people say, you shouldn't have a lawn. Why are you cutting the lawn so much? Why do you even have a lawn? All of that land space should be put to productive use in terms of a vegetable garden. Lots of people say this, a lot of people say this, and I don't have proof on this, but my guess is many of them don't really do a lot of gardening. Because when you say that, that is a clear statement to me that you don't know how much time and effort it takes to manage a garden. We're talking right over here, this is the beginning of our planting season. I've got other starts inside the house. Our last frost date is somewhere around June 10th to 13th or so. It takes an enormous amount of time and effort to manage 220 square feet of planting space in a garden. And we do it well. If I were to add 2 more beds, I might get up closer to 300 square feet of planting space. But 300 square feet is nothing compared to many properties in this country. If someone came to me and said, I've got a 4,000 square foot lawn, I'm going to rip the whole thing out and turn it into garden beds so I could be productive with my land, I would fully expect them to be overwhelmed with the amount of cost, time, energy, money spent, everything having to do with it. They almost assuredly would fail. Now, they would do just fine if they put in 200, 300 square feet, because you can produce an awful lot in a pad that small. And it's not exactly overwhelming, but it's a lot more work than you realize. Now, for those people out there who really don't like lawn equipment because they think it's dirty and loud and wasteful of fossil fuels and they're pollutants, I use battery. Why is this a problem? I'm not polluting with a battery-powered piece of equipment. I suppose indirectly I'm using a little bit of electricity to charge the battery, and the electricity is being produced somewhere. So there might be trace pollution because of that, but I mean, that's like so small that it's not even measurable. I am perfectly capable of maintaining this lawn with residential, it's a cat here, with totally normal residential use equipment, just a rotary mower, a battery string trimmer, all of the just normal stuff that you use, a blower, a battery blower, that helps keep things a little bit tidy, and they're way more quiet than all of their gas-powered counterparts. For just your regular old lawn around a house, these things are perfectly acceptable. Now, lawn care businesses, I don't know, that might be another problem. There is legislation out there and state and local restrictions on the use of gas-powered equipment, and so most likely, over time, whether you want it to or not, battery is pretty much going to be the way to go, and there's virtually no pollution in using these battery powered equipment. They're not dirty. Now, a lot of the people who like the meadow look really kind of like jive on the biodiversity hook too. They're like, I don't want just turf grass in my lawn. There's no reason to be cutting it constantly and killing off weeds because I want to support biodiversity. There are lots of different like weeds, traditionally considered weeds, that are found in lawns. Clovers, medic, things like that. These are legumes. They actually fixate nitrogen from the sky and they can deposit it into the ground through symbiotic relationship. I mean, this stuff is crazy. Yeah, getting rid of all of those things might be killing some biodiversity. Certainly getting rid of like dandelion flowers and clover flowers and medic flowers. The bees don't have quite as many flowers to deal with. But like I said, if you're only tending to a small lawn within your greater property, then I don't see that as a problem. I also don't see some of these weeds as the problem that others do. I'm literally on my brown hill behind me. I'm literally planting clover into the hill this year so that I don't have to fertilizing up there. I'm also going to be putting a buffalo grass in up there. Buffalo grass is one of the only, I think it might be the only native turf grass to North America. It's not used, it's not very common, but you can actually put a buffalo grass in and never mow it. It'll grow up tall and kind of flop over, and if there's clover built into it, that's going to fertilize it all on its own. It's all drought tolerant. You basically never have to mow it, fertilize it, or water it. You can, but you don't have to. And it still ends up being a useful lawn space for a family because it's not going to grow 3 feet high and scratch up all of the kids as they're wandering through it. In my lawn, I fertilize with only organics. I'm chemical free and fungicide free. This is as natural of a lawn as you can get. And really, for the vast majority of my time here, I'm not even irrigating this lawn at this point. I've watered this lawn 2 times from March until June combined. Because of the organics and natural products that I put in the lawn, I'm supporting lawn like soil biology. I'm adding carbon to the lawn, and I'm not killing off any of the beneficial microorganisms that live in the lawn. If you were to pull this soil out and test it, it would have an enormous amount of biodiversity in it. And then when you factor in the garden space back here, the clover that we're going to have on the hill, and all of the meadow space around us, I don't see any reason that that argument has much merit, at least for me and my property. The last point is the non-vegetative yards, rock lawns, things with nothing really alive growing in it. Now, this makes sense. If you don't have hardly any rain and it's crazy hot, or maybe you just like really don't like the high water bills that come from your municipal water supply district, whatever it is, putting in these rock lawns can make sense. The problem is there's literally no vegetation in your lawn. Rocks and other non-vegetation things don't support biodiversity in the space. There's basically nothing there. It slowly becomes more and more dead of an environment, and everything gets hotter. All of these things absorb heat and they just hold and trap onto it. When you have turf, you don't really have to water it that much, even in high heat, if you maintain it well. It's gonna knock my plants over here. Dude! And it has a cooling effect on the environment. This makes sense. And there are grass types for environments like that that also make sense. Very deep-rooted, very drought-tolerant grass types. Your buffalo grasses, your Bermuda grasses, your zoysia grasses. I would greatly encourage more people to consider installing buffalo grass lawns because they are very close to no input grass types. They work well in hot environments and cold environments, and they will support the biodiversity in your immediate property. Now, for those of you who do keep lawns, I do suggest that you don't mow the lawn nearly as often during the summer when it's hot, unless you're running a really fast-growing grass for that time of year. You're gonna have to mow it a little bit more frequently, but keeping it a little bit higher can make that a little bit easier. You don't want to go out every 4 days, maybe go out every 7 and just mow it a little bit higher. If you live in a shady, cold environment, throw in a fine fescue into the mix. It grows slow, it doesn't require a lot of inputs, and many of the fine fescues can be grown as a no-mow grass type, or at least let's call it a once-a-month mowing session grass type. There are growth regulators that you can put on your lawn. Like you could just go out and get a little sprayer, spray a growth regulator on the lawn that will tell the lawn, generally through plant hormones, to not put on top growth. So if you don't want to mow the lawn a lot, but you do want green turf, you can apply a regulator and that will help you extend the time between mowing sessions without doing anything drastic. I have an enormous amount of material on this channel about natural and organic lawn care, things that support our environment but still give us a fantastic looking green pad for our backyards. If you are new to the Turf Mechanic brand, then that is what I want to leave you with. If you're subscribing to my channel, it's not about having the best lawn on the block. It's about supporting the soil and the ecosystem in your own personal space, your own yard, your own property, and managing the whole thing as intelligently as possible. You don't need to subscribe to this channel. You don't need to support lawns, but you do need to understand there are far more complexities to lawn care than some people realize. Thank you for all of the time that you've given me if you watched this far into the video, and I do hope that I see many of you again in the comments in future videos down the road.